Hello guys. So this is the recording I promised, okay? And I hope you take the time to watch it until the end. It might be a little longer than we all want, but we need to finish our program. So in this clip, in this video, you're gonna find the concept of academic reports, the main characteristics, the structure, the sections of our report, writing tips, and some information that may help you write a report, okay? So what are reports? Essentially, a report is a short, sharp, concise document which is written for a particular purpose and audience. It generally sets out and analyzes a situation or problem, often making recommendations for future action. It is a factual paper and needs to be clear and well structured, okay? So always remember, it needs to be concise. It doesn't matter if it's short, as long as it includes all the information you need, and as long as you follow the structure. So just to clear up some possible confusions or misconceptions. Reports are not essays. In academia, there is some overlap between reports and essays, and the two are sometimes used interchangeably. Reports are more likely to be needed for business, scientific, and technical subjects and in the workplace. An essay presents an argument and reasoning. A report concentrates on facts. While essays are often concerned with abstract or theoretical subjects, a report is a description of a situation or something that has happened. In academic terms, it might be describe an experiment you have it might describe an experiment you have conducted, a survey you have carried out, a comparison of alternative proposals to deal with the situation. Reports may contain some or all the following elements: a description of the sequence of events or a situation, some interpretation of the significance of this event or situation, whether solely your own analysis or informed by the views of others, always carefully reference, of course, an evaluation of the facts or the results of your research, discussion of the likely outcomes of future courses of action, your recommendations as to a course of action and conclusion, okay? So it requires a lot of interpretation of the data reported in the reports, haha. And you need to make inferences and provide recommendations. So a lot of critical thinking is required. Sections and numbering. A report is designed to lead people through the information in a structured way, but also to enable them to find the information that they want quickly and easily. Reports usually, therefore, have numbered sections and subsections, and a clear and full contents page listing each heading. It follows that the page numbering is important. Okay. Okay, this is it. Look, here we have in the introduction, the statement of the problem, section 1. Okay, it has subheadings, methods of study. These are not numbered in this model, but you may number the subsections anyway. And there is a list over here of the sections and page number. Okay, so you can find everything. Even the tables, charts, figures, they are all listed in separate tables, okay, in separate lists. Now, so these are the things, or this is a structure that your report should follow. You should have a title. The report should contain the title should contain the essential elements of the report in ideally no more than 12 words. The effect of temperature changes in the germination of wheat. Okay, this is an example. Then it should have an abstract. The executive summary or abstract for a scientific report is a brief summary of the content. It's worth writing this last when you know the key points to draw out. It should be no more than half a page to a page in length. Remember, the executive summary is designed to give busy executives a quick summary of the contents of the report. Okay. Now, introduction. The introduction sets out what you plan to say and provides a brief summary of the problem under discussion. It should also touch briefly on your conclusions. Then you have the main body. The main body of the report should be carefully structured in a way that leads the reader through the issue. You should split it into sections using numbered subheadings relating to the themes or areas for consideration. For each theme, you should aim to set out clearly and concisely the main issue under discussion or any areas of difficulty or disagreement. You may also exclude experimental results. All the information that you present should be related back to the brief and the precise subject under discussion. If it's not relevant, leave it out. People, do not include irrelevant information. Okay. This part is a bit tricky because depending on what you're doing, if you're presenting a business report, a report of a study, the report of an experiment, the subsections in the main body are going to be different, okay? I'm going to show you an example here. In the body, you may have a review of the literature, okay? Design of the investigation, that means are you doing a quantitative, qualitative, mixed methods? Are you doing what type of experiment? Are you doing an observation? Are you doing a lab experiment? All of these go there. And then what are the measurement techniques that you used? Did you did a bibliographical research? Did you use a survey? Did you use questionnaires? Did you use secondhand data? Everything should go there. And then you have a results section where you basically say, you just put the results. You don't interpret them. You don't say anything. You just say, these are the results of the experiment, of the experience, of the project, whatever, and you detail the results there. Okay. Here's a bit more of information about these sections. The method sections or methodological section explains how you did the research. It should allow another researcher to repeat your work, so it needs to include a description of the equipment, materials used, as well as the process you followed. You may wish to include diagrams or photographs to illustrate the setup in the laboratory. The passive is normally used here. 3 samples were prepared rather than the active we prepared. As the research is concluded, the past tense should be used throughout. Results, again, using the past tense, here you summarize all the results obtained. Detailed data might be presented in tables and graphs. with only the most important features highlighted in the text. You must include all results, including unexpected ones that you do not conform to your hypothesis. And then you need to have a conclusion within your report, okay? For the conclusion, it sets out what inferences you draw from the information, including any experimental results. It may include recommendations, or these might be included in a separate section. Recommendations suggest how you think the situation could be improved and should be specific, achievable, and measurable. If your recommendations have financial implications, you should set these out clearly with estimated costs, if possible. Okay? Now, before you move on to the conclusion and recommendations, you should have a discussion section. This section links back to the introduction by comparing your results with the original purpose or hypothesis. It aims to evaluate experiment in terms of your findings and compare them to your expectations. It may be necessary to refer to the relevant literature. Okay, for some strange reason, I didn't read the part, like this section about conclusion, because conclusions and recommendations are together. Okay, so I'm adding this while editing my video. I feel like a YouTuber. Okay, so the conclusion sets out what inferences you draw from the information, including any experimental results. It may include recommendations, or these may be included in a separate section. Okay, so I know Salvador is going to be like, what the hell, teacher? You told me today that the conclusions are not the same as making inferences. Well, no. But as I understand it, and I think that I have done this a lot, but it depends on like what university you work for, who is your teacher, like the style of reports changes. So usually in the results section, what you do is, let's say you do the experiment of the beans that you grow in cotton in a jar, and you write down what happens every day. Those are your results, okay? Let's say you had one jar that you added water to, one jar that you didn't add water to, and one jar that you overwatered. You add too much water to it. So you write down your results. You say this plant died, this other plant didn't die, and this one thrived under these conditions. So in the conclusion, in the discussion section, you may say that there is some correlation to from like the life expectancy of a plant, or like the how long the plant lives according to weather conditions, availability of water and light, etc. And you make inferences in the discussion section, and then in the conclusion, what you do is make a summary. You restate what you already said in different words, okay? And you also need to like in the discussion, you need to contrast it a lot with the literature review. Okay, the books that we did in the literature review, or the background section, whatever you call it, we already
predicted that possibly the beings would die if we overwater the plants, and this research confirms this information, blah blah blah. And the conclusion is like a summary of everything, a summary of what the literature said, a summary of the results, and these inferences you made. And then you add the recommendations, and I'm gonna let the video continue.
Now, the recommendation suggests how you think the situation could be improved, and you should be specific. You should provide achievable and measurable recommendations. If your recommendations have financial implications, you should set these out clearly with estimated costs, if possible. Okay? Now, you should also include a list of references, of course, as in all academic writing. This is a list of all the resources you have specifically mentioned in your report. Okay, so before we dive into some tips, let's go back to the model report. Okay, we have the table of contents. We've got an abstract, and then all the subsections.
Hi. So I was looking through this model paper and I realized it doesn't have a summary. Okay, so I looked up other examples, and I think this is the best one I have found. And usually, a good summary for any type of research paper has 4 main parts: the topic, like what is your paper, your report about, then you add some background to it. The next section is the methodological section. What type of study is it? That's the big one. You may even add some of the methods. Okay, and then the last bit is the major findings, the implication and significance of this study. If you discover the cure for cancer, then you have to say, we discovered the cure, like this study is important because it is the actual cure for cancer and it's going to save millions of lives. Okay. So yeah, this example is a bit short, but it has the basic structure. Like you're gonna see this across many research papers, but you need to know, and don't say that like later on in life, my stupid teacher from INAS didn't tell me that how you make good abstracts. Well, they change according to the subject. Like they are not the same in medicine, in psychology, in education, engineering, they change. Okay, so now let me show you this beautiful abstract. This is another option that I found, is to have a general background, then a specific background to your problem, knowledge gap, like why do you do this study? Because there wasn't any information available on this, so you decided to research it. And then you say, like, here we report in this paper, we are going to tell you about what we find out, okay? And then you say, mention some of the results, like if you add too much water to your beans, they die. That's the result of your experiment, so you report it there. And then the meaning of the results in this picture is the significance, the importance. Like, why do we care about your research? Why should I read it? What is the importance, the relevance, okay? And let's go back to the rest of the video.
Okay, so over here we have a short introduction. And then we have a statement of the problem. We've got the significance of the study. This wasn't detailed in the PowerPoint that I show you, but this is a very common way of dividing your report. You say why the study is important and why you should read it. Also, we've got the scope of the study, which, as you know, it describes what your study covers. Okay, we always have big general topics. And if you're going to talk about dogs, this scope of the study tells us that what specifically you're going to study or you studied in your research, experiment, whatever. And also provides a definition, like what definition of a concept you're going to use. For example, this study was limited to the perceptions of full-time business employees as to the negative effects that stress has on work performance and the steps that employees are taking to manage stress. That is all they're going to study. And here we have the description of the concept they're going to use. Stress is defined as a disruptive or disquieting influences that negatively affect an individual in the workplace. There is a revision of the literature, which is the part where you go and investigate what have researchers in the scientific community done until today. You don't need to, like, if you're going to study autism, you don't need to go to 1981 when the first paper on autism was published. But you can maybe study the last 2 years, the last 5 years, and you're gonna put together a small section where you say, okay, this is what the scientific community says about this topic, and you have to connect it to your study. So in the methods of the study, you describe the source data. Where are you going to collect your data from? Okay. A sample selection. How are you going to select your data? How are you going to select your books? How are you going to select the people in your study? All of those. Statistical methods. How are you going to represent the results of your study in tables? Okay. And then the limitations of the study, the things that you're not going to cover in the study, the problems that may happen, okay? For example, sorry, in this study, because questionnaires must generally be brief, areas that may have affected by stress may not have been included in the questionnaire. So a questionnaire cannot cover every point of stress in life possible. So some areas might be left out unintentionally. And then over here, we have the section 2, which it has the findings and conclusions and recommendations, okay? This study was designed to determine the effects of stress. You have a small introduction within this. This is a results section. Findings means result as well. Then you got a description of the findings, the demographic profile, negative effects. This is all according to the answers in a questionnaire, okay? And then you've got your conclusions. On the basis of the findings, several conclusions concerning the effects of stress on Central Texas business employees can be drawn. The findings of this study indicated stress does negatively affect the work performance of employees. Job satisfaction and productivity were indicated as 2 areas most affected by work-related stress. And then you've got the recommendations. Based on the findings and the conclusion in this study, the following recommendations are made. Employees should offer various stress reduction programs. programs to help employees manage stress because stress is prevalent in the workplace. Okay. And over here you have your reference list or bibliography. And here you got an appendix where you put the questionnaire. They put the questionnaire that they gave to other people, like to the people in the study, sorry. Okay, so let's proceed with some tips. Getting started. Prior preparation and planning. The structure of a report is very important to lead the reader through your thinking to a course of action and or decision. It is worth taking a bit of the time to plan it out beforehand. Know your brief. You will usually receive a clear brief for a report, including that what are you studying and for whom the report should be prepared. First of all, consider your brief very carefully and make sure that you are clear who the report is for. If you're a student, then not just your tutor, but who it's supposed to be written for and why you're writing it, as well as what you want the reader to do at the end of the reading. Make a decision or agree, a recommendation perhaps. Keep your brief in mind at all times. Did I repeat the information? During your planning and writing, make sure that you keep your brief in mind. Who are you writing for and why are you writing? All your thinking needs to be focused on that, which may require you to be ruthless in your reading and thinking. Anything irrelevant should be discarded. As you read and research, try to organize your work into sections by theme, a bit like writing a literature review. Make sure that you keep track of your references, especially for academic work, although referencing is perhaps less important in the workplace. It is also important that you can substantiate any assumptions that you make, so it's helpful to keep track of your sources of information. So cite your sources, people. Okay. In this presentation, I included a structure and vocabulary aid, but this is also in the book, let me tell you, Academic Writing Course by R.R. Jordan that you have on the platform. And you've got, okay, more vocabulary and structure aid. And you've got some optional exercises, okay? The basic framework for a research report and writing a report on your own time. Okay, hope you like this video. Bye.